Hello, my nostalgia loving friends. Today we're talking about 2006. If you're new here, boy, do you have a lot to catch up on. I have been on a journey this past 10 months of finding a 5-star read published in every year that I have been alive. And we've made it to the final episode. I'm so excited because I'm a completionist and I want this to finally be all filled out. But I'm also devastated because it's just another series coming to an end, and one that I love. I think there's definitely the chance of a bonus episode in 2025 because I can just kick it off being like reading books from 2025 until I find a 5-star. Because if we look at the board, there is room for more. Because when I originally made this, it was 2023, so I only filled it out up to 2022, and I do have 5 stars from 2023 and 2024, and then I have another layer to add 2025. I'm also toying with the idea of a couple of the options revisiting those years and filling them out with more appropriate titles. So like rather than having parts of a series or things that are for teens occasionally in there, I find something from that year that I more like as my current self love. But as far as this original season and the episode run we're currently in, this is the final one. So let's talk about 2006. This was a good year for me. I was 15, 16. I had a great friend group. I would have met Rob, 15 years old. I got my license this year. I got my lip pierced, my nape pierced. I got my first tattoo. I went to Warped Tour. I started working in a hotel. I remember liking like all of the electives I was taking this year. I was taking 2 art classes, photography. I was reading things like Post Secret, the Georgia Nicholson series, the Sweet Valley Junior High series, some Judy Blume, but also some Stephen King. And Lord of the Flies was one of my favorite classroom reads. That's what I was reading when I was this age, but not what was published in that time. What was actually published in that time is some of my least favorite books. Like my least favorite Stephen King was published in 2006. New Moon was published in 2006. I didn't read that until like 5-6 years ago at this point, but didn't like it. Only Revolutions came out in 2006. My least favorite John Green, my least favorite Gillian Flynn, my least favorite Jasmine Ward, my least favorite Georgia Nicholson. The only books I somewhat liked were Life as We Knew It and Lisey's Story. Oh, also Fly on the Wall and The Tent, which I didn't like. And I DNF'd a lot from this year. So it was a good year for me, not a good year for publishing. What I've previously read might be bad, but the options that I have this time, I'm so excited about. Oh, I should also mention that I selected this as my nostalgic apparel piece of the video. I've been trying to find one for each one that represented something for me at the time. This is definitely the year that, I don't know if this happened for anybody else, but acknowledging that your parents don't actually have terrible music taste and maybe your taste kind of aligns. That was me in 2006. I've shared my playlists before, but 10th grade was very much emo, screamo things, and 11th grade was Scorpions, Def Leppard, Motley Crue, Whitesnake, AC/DC, Van Halen, and growing an appreciation for the music that I grew up with that I denied liking until I had formed something up here. So in going with the theme of reassessing my own opinions, I'm gonna do that with books. These are some things that over the years people have told me to read. I have denied wanting to pick them up. And this is also going to be a different episode than a bunch of the other ones because I'm reading all of these. The one at the top of my list is The Road by Cormac McCarthy because I love post-apocalyptic stuff and just everybody tells me it's like obviously just such a classic that this is going to be for me. I'm starting to think you might be right. I'm going to read Mistborn. Now before last year, was it last year? I'd never picked up a Brandon Sanderson. I just didn't think he was going to be for me. And then I feel like I picked up some good like entry-level Brandon Sanderson and I gave them both 4 stars. This one was recommended to me least, but I've seen people mention it to me. It's Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moning. It was recommended to me most years ago, and I feel like I read something about this being about fairies a couple years ago. Never ever would I ever pick up a book about fairies. Next up, this has been recommended to me like a couple times, but it's more of my own selection. That's The Lies of Locke Lamora by Scott Lynch, as well as The Blade Itself by Joe Abercrombie. This one is coming from the library, and I picked both of these because I actually have loved short stories from both of these authors. I've read Book of Swords, Dangerous Women, oh, and Rogues, and they have stories in some or all of these collections that I've liked. So I thought, let me pick up these long fantasy things. Do I know what they're about? No. I also grabbed The 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. I don't have high hopes about this one. However, this was actually probably the first book that was ever recommended to me on BookTube, which is crazy to think about. 10 years ago. It's almost 10 years. Next month it'll be 10 years that I've been on BookTube. I went from my mommy channel to my BookTube channel, and I wanted to find bookish people. And there was only one other mommy vlogger who had a Goodreads. And I remember adding her as a friend, and one of the first comments, I think maybe one of the first and last interactions we ever actually had, was her saying, "This is one of my favorite books of all time. You absolutely have to read this. Now that you're on Goodreads, now that you're gonna make bookish content, make sure this is something you read." I ignored her. I'm a terrible person, but now I'm gonna right my wrongs. Those are the ones I know for sure I'm gonna read in this video because I want to have opinions on them and I want to share my thoughts. So you can expect reviews for all of those. But I'm also going to try out these two, just read the first couple chapters of each. I don't know if they're gonna be for me, but Special Topics in Calamity Physics by Marisha Pessl. I've liked something from this author. I've disliked something from this author. And then Lullabies for Little Criminals by Heather O'Neill, I've just heard a lot about. But once I actually learned what the content was, I don't think it's gonna be for me. And then, I know, this list is long. I have one more thing. It's the Barefoot Contessa cookbook. Ina Garten, I'm pretty sure, has just published or is about to publish like a memoir about her life, and I've seen interviews of her popping up on my TikTok. Then when I was scrolling through 2006 releases, I saw she had a cookbook. I know she has lots of cookbooks, but I thought, let me grab this. And I was gonna say with every book I read and review, I will do a recipe. I don't think that's actually gonna work out for me because that's like a lot to commit to. And flipping through this, they're very basic recipes. It's just like, here's an idea, make your broccoli rabe and add garlic and crushed red pepper flakes, which I know like is maybe what some people need to learn how to cook. And especially maybe in 2006, like the internet wasn't as much of a thing where you could go find a simple recipe for anything. So this was a basic kind of cookbook, but I think there'll be a couple desserts maybe that I can try in here. In fact, this is a good seasonal one. Pumpkin mousse parfait. That sounds great. I have some leftover heavy cream in my fridge from cooking something last week and absolutely no plan for what to do with it. Oh, mixed berry pavlova, sweetened whipped cream. Oh, cold heavy cream, sugar, vanilla extract. Okay, I can do that. Anyway, I don't really know where to start, but I feel like Mistborn because it's one that I know I need to read. It's a members TBR jar pick. I'm assuming I'm gonna like it, but I'm hesitant to say this is gonna be the 5-star, so let's just start here. Okay, here's how deep I am into Mistborn. I wanted to read a good chunk physically. I'm on page 69 before switching to the audiobook because I'm going for a walk later. I would love to listen to this because I think it's going to be really action-packed, but I wanted to ensure that I had a good grasp on like the world building first. And I think that I do as much as I can. So we have Kelsier, who it's kind of like the tale as old as time, an oppressed group who's looked at from this one person's point of view, and they go, oh, this group hasn't taken the initiative to rebel properly and they can't find their own freedom, so I'm going to be the savior and I'm going to free them all. He has these powers that make it easier for him to help this group of people, the Ska, and he is called Misting. It's like, is he half human, half magic or something? And to be magic within the Ska is really rare. But then he comes across this girl who is, oh God, there's like mistlings, is that what they were called? Mistings, maybe. And if you're a misting, you have access to one of 8 of these like powers. And if you have access to more than one, you're called a mistborn, which is really rare. And Vin is a mistborn, and so he like discovers that she has these powers, and he's going to use her in his big plan, but it's not just to like be a savior for these people. He wants revenge against like the ruler and the final empire. He wants to take them down. And he tells people he wants to just like cause chaos in the city and like take over the empire, the castle, the palace, whatever. But his actual goal is to kill the guy in charge. And everyone thinks he can't do that because that guy is supposedly immortal. Kelsier thinks that he can take him down with a special medal. So there are 8 medals. I don't know the difference. There's like 8 of them, and then there's 2 more that are like super fancy, and then there's like 1 that's a rumored special medal that should be able to take down this guy. To use your powers is called allomancy, and Vin like didn't know that what she was doing her entire life was powers because she just thinks she can influence people, and now she's realizing through this guy that she is a mistborn. But then there are these people called inquisitors and obligations, I want to say they were called, and they're trying to like protect the ministry and stop the people from hurting things. I'm having a fine time with it. I enjoy learning things. Am I retaining the information? Kind of. Now I'm gonna go watch hockey because tonight is the first night of the Utah Hockey Club playing, and they're playing my team. So I think it's gonna be a good game. And then we'll go for a walk, and then I'll listen to this, and then I'll tell you about it. So Ina Garten is gonna teach me how to make a pavlova from 2006 while I talk to you about Mistborn and why I can't afford for this to be a 5-star. I have my room temperature egg whites. I'm gonna blend them up with sugar. I blended it for a second to get like an in-between, like just white sugar and castor sugar. And then I have cornstarch and vinegar and vanilla and a pinch of salt. Here's what's happened. This is how far into it I am. I have 100-ish pages to go. And it doesn't feel like a 5 right now. It feels like a 4. I don't think it could become a 3, but I think it could become a 5 depending what happens in the last 100 pages. And I can't afford for that to happen because there are like 30 books in this series, and I can't spend my life reading this long ass series and having people comment constantly like, when are you gonna continue the series? When are you gonna read the next one? Because I'm already just so bad at keeping up with series. Here's what's gone on though. Kelsier has taken Vin under his wing. He's teaching her how to use her powers. It's been fascinating learning about all the different metals and the pushing and pulling. I love it. It was starting to feel a little bit superhero-y when they were like flying around the city together, but I'll get over it. And then Vin has to start fake being a part of nobility because their whole goal is to infiltrate the city and to make friends with various people and to cause chaos and disruption and ruin alliances and gossip. Then she meets this guy, Elend, who I think is a great love interest. I think that's the direction it's going. And she trusts him because he's one of the few people who seem a little bit different. He has empathy for the Ska. He wants to know more about them. He wants to maybe influence the political system in a positive way. But Vin is misleading him. She's lying to him, and that's all gonna blow up, I'm pretty sure, in just a second. The pace of this book is impeccable. Like right when I was getting sick of all of the balls and her attending all of these events and just like pretending to be this like rich fancy girl, I was like over it, and then we moved on very quickly. When we were doing like battles and fighting, as soon as I was getting a little tired of it, it moved on. They were going around spreading rumors, breaking up the alliances, doing all of that, and then I got a little bit tired of it, and then we moved right along. And now I'm a little tired of like the political dealings and all the conversation about like what the big plan is and who they're gonna work with and blah, blah, blah. And now we're going back to like stuff between Vin and Elend. What I really like about this is that nothing is easy. Like if this was a YA story, they would have like one goal and one battle to complete in this book, and they would successfully do it. In here, even though it has the makings of a similar, vibe, it's got a young girl and she's learning about her powers and she's learning about, the bad parts of the world. There are things that go wrong constantly for them. They have these plans, they have a setback, they move forward, they take a couple steps back. Obviously there are so many books in this series and I don't know what each of them is following, if it's all one big straightforward story or if we're visiting all of these different things. I have a feeling we're going to go back in time at some point because Vin is reading the journals of the ruling lord, and there was one mention of his experience coming out of the Well of Ascension, which I'm pretty sure is another book in the series. So I imagine we're going to be following all of these different timelines eventually. Something that I'm wondering about that journal too is there's a moment where Vin is discussing it with somebody and the journals just end and she's like, where's the rest? Like, I need more translated. And the person is like, that's where it ends. But clearly the story is not over. And I'm wondering if that's like foreshadowing for this experience, like for me as the reader, because he mentioned there's like this elusive 11th metal. We've had this idea of this entire time and we haven't gotten anything about it yet. And then also when Vin is reading the journals, there's like no mention of the 11th metal, yet they're alluding to it all the time. And so I feel like intentionally what Vin is going through is what we are going through. I like how long things are taking. Months have passed. We have these little like montage feeling moments, and obviously like things are going to go wrong for them. People are dying, bad things are happening, but they're moving closer to their goal. But they are trying to overthrow an entire like government. So it makes sense that it's not happening really easily. We just learned about gold and silver as metals and what they do. And I don't want to like spoil this entire book. Like, I don't know what's considered spoilers or not. But there's something to do with time that has been mentioned and like the past and future. And it makes me wonder if potentially there could be a time travel element to one of these powers. I don't think so, but I love time travel and that would just be a really cool element. It's 3 hours later. I have not finished my book. I have not finished my pavlova, but my pavlova finished me. For those of you who were thinking, at what point in this recipe is Kayla gonna screw it up? Anyone who bet on the temperature part, ding, 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 you win. If you're new here, I can't bake. So when I say, oh, there's like easy recipes in here, I meant easy to me, and maybe to someone who doesn't cook wouldn't find easy. A pavlova might be easy to you, somebody who bakes, but not for me. I saw 180 degrees, and to be fair, she didn't say Celsius or Fahrenheit, so I converted it and thought 350. I mean, this is still like really fun, but I'm supposed to be able to flip it over and fill it full of things, and but you know what, I would have given up. However, I made the whipped cream, and I made the sauce. It's so good, and I'm not gonna waste it. So we're now on to round 2 of meringue. I should have known, meringue is sensitive. It needs to be on a low temperature. What was I thinking? Nothing was going on up here. So I'll see you in 3 more hours when pavlova number 2 is done. The way it's 8 p.m. and I started working on this at 2, let me tell you about Mistborn while I assemble my pavlova. Well, it told me to flip it over, and now this side, it looks undercooked. It's not. I used a thermometer. I just think it like leaked a little bit at the bottom. The other one didn't though. As far as Mistborn, I think the whole magic system, learning about burning metals was super interesting. It had love. It had death. It had unexpected moments. The world building was super interesting. It was mentioning things like how the world used to be green and now it's not. Like, there used to be greenery everywhere and living things, and you used to be able to see the stars, and you got a good idea of what the world used to look like. And then we followed a character, you know, learning her own abilities and coming into her own. There was a lot of realizations about past like family members and relationships, things that came to light that were really interesting. If you love heists, if you love quests in fantasy, I think this was really easy to get into. More simple language and easier plot to like understand than I guess I expected. Brandon Sanderson uses very accessible language, I guess, in the things that I've read, which you could consider like entry points with his books. It wasn't too flowery. It felt very intentional in its development, and those are all my thoughts. It was a pretty perfect book. Oh, wow. Now, how's my pavlova? Is it perfect?
Is it gonna get caught in my teeth again?
Oh, definitely. It's like crispy but gooey at the same time. It's so sweet. I think you're supposed to be able to take like a slice of it. This one would have fared better. I think you're supposed to just eat it like this, but I don't know how else to eat it.
It's good. It tastes really good.
It does taste really good.
Oh my God.
I didn't make it exactly as Ina did. She put in raspberry liqueur. I put in this like non-alcoholic champagne I had in the fridge. That is not normal to eat something like this. I think I love it. I'm actually gonna take the top of this and try to cut it off and like sprinkle it on top so there's some really crispy pieces, because this one didn't really crisp up at all. And that will actually add some bitterness to it that it needs. I definitely learned some things. I would cook it, like I would put it on high, not on high, I would put it on like 350 right away, crisp up the outside, then turn the heat right down, which is what I saw other recipes saying. And then that'll cook the inside like low and slow. You know who's gonna love it when he gets home tomorrow? Liam. It is time for my next read. So I'm currently in, oh, you can't see. I'm currently in Vancouver. Here's the view. We're on the 10th floor. It's a beautiful view. It's the hotel we stay in every single time we come here if we're doing something at Rogers Arena. And last night was the Don Toliver concert that Liam really wanted to go to, and he had a friend who was in the city as well. So he went to that. And then I just decided to book the hotel for another extra day because for one, I was having a live show today for my membership. We have a seasonal book club buddy read. And we were doing the Raven Cycle, and I'd scheduled a live show for today, and I was like, I could either drive home and after 5 hours in the vehicle do a live show kind of late, or I could just keep the hotel room and do it from here. And then we have another day in Vancouver because it is a long weekend. And I got to start my day with an acai bowl, which is, Kelowna just doesn't have good acai bowls. And we only, I think, even have one place that has them. So that's what I always get when I come here. And then we stopped at Crumble Cookies, all of the quintessential foodie things to do while we're here. And I've decided, oh, I put you on top of my book. I've decided since we are on the road, I'm gonna read the road. My family is currently at the mall, and I'm not sure yet if I'm gonna go join them or if I'm just gonna kind of walk around here and find myself lunch, and then they'll come back and we'll do it. We have no plans. I don't know if we're gonna go out. I don't know what we're gonna do. Rob and I went out for dinner last night while Liam was at the concert. That was delicious. And this is about a man, and I can't figure out if it's his son, because it says a father and son, and the kid calls him Papa, and he refers to himself as his father, but it just doesn't feel like a father and son. So I'm trying to figure out if they found each other in the apocalypse or if this is actually his son. Just the way that they're describing their relationship, they don't actually sound like father and son, and I can't explain why. So I'm probably way off base. The language is very descriptive, and we don't fully know what has happened to the world, but they're walking around and there are dead bodies. There's just ash and dust everywhere. Everything seems dead, and they're just trying to survive. They haven't really seen any other people, but they're finding food occasionally, and they're just like eating cans of things. They just found a bottle or a can of pop, and it's the first time the kid has ever had pop. There's also like earthquakes, so I don't need answers. Like, I don't need to know exactly what the apocalyptic scenario is, so I'm not going to feel satisfied or unsatisfied by the direction this goes in. It's really repetitive with dialogue. The kid's constantly asking, like, can I ask you a question? And he says, yes, son. Papa, can we go? Yes, we can go. Can I ask you something? Yes, of course. A page later, can I ask you something? Yes, of course. He's just very like kind and comforting and quiet. Maybe I'll grab the audiobook. Maybe I'll walk around, find somewhere to have lunch, just live my big city girl dreams. As you saw, I made my way to Vancouver Public Library. It was very nice. I hung out there for a bit and read my book, took myself to lunch, and I don't know that I'm loving this enough to finish it tonight. It's a quick read for sure because it's not really broken up into chapters. It's just like every single page, there's just a scene, a short conversation, a short moment. It's bleak, it's sad, what this father and son are dealing with. I think it's because they don't have names. They're constantly referred to as like the son, the child, the kid, that it makes me feel like, did he use his name? Would I feel more like he was his own child? maybe not, but that's just making it feel distant, which I'm sure is intentional. This is the kind of book that like I'll go read things about it after, like the reason why it was written and people's theories and thoughts and metaphors. So it's sad. The people they're encountering, the things that they're seeing, and then occasionally there will be a joyous moment for them. They'll find like food for the first time in a long time, or it's like food they've never seen before. And those moments should feel good, but they almost make me feel more sad because like, is it better to have the thing and then never get to have it again? Or is it better to exist without it forever and never know what you were missing? This is the kind of book that you're reading for the writing, for sure, because it's not the plot, it's the atmosphere, it's the setting. I'm just gonna flip to the page I'm literally on and read something and you'll get the vibe. Beyond a crossroads in that wilderness, they began to come upon the possessions of travelers abandoned in the road years ago. Boxes and bags, everything melted in black. Old plastic suitcases curled shapeless in the heat. Here and there, the imprint of things wrested out of the tar by scavengers. A mile on and they began to come upon the dead, figures half mirrored in the blacktop, clutching themselves, mouths howling. He put his hand on the boy's shoulder. "Take my hand," he said. "I don't think you should see this." Well, that's not the most descriptive scene, but like that's what it is. It's just every scene is them seeing something, them feeling something. It's no quotation marks. The dialogue is just in the paragraphs. I don't think I'm loving it. I think it's gonna be a 5-star, but I do recognize it's extremely well written and I'm having a good time with it. I finished The Road on the drive home. I think this was great. It's something that I would have loved to have read in like 10th grade English class when I was reading and discussing Hatchet and Lord of the Flies with a class. It has a little bit less plot, but like survival stories or something I loved reading, and I loved discussing like the underlying metaphors and themes and just things that the book is saying. This ultimately to me is about the power of parents' love, how even in an apocalyptic scenario, your focus for your children is for them to have a better life than you had, and just this obsessive need for their survival. It was beautifully told. I don't know why I didn't personally cry near the end when I felt like I should have. And I do for some reason think that like high school me, this would have hit harder. It was simple. It was sad. I understand why it's had a lasting impact. I would like to put forth an opinion that I don't know if it would be considered a spoiler, so just mute me if like you really want to read this. I don't think that the final section of this is real, and I don't know if that's like a part of the lore of this story or not, because I haven't looked up anybody's reviews or discussions. But his father dies at the end, and then right before that he tells his son like he needs to learn how to tell a story, and I think that final section where the son gets found by this new family, everything just works out for him. I know it's only temporary. We don't see like an overall scope of what his life really looks like in the future, but the idea is that he finds happiness. I think that's made up. I think that's the story that he made up, that he would imagine telling his father, and that's something that would bring his father peace. I think the son dies soon after his dad. That's obviously not a nice way to think of the book ending, but I think that's what's going on. The book's not obviously saying that. It's not giving us any clue that that is what's happening. That's just my interpretation of the ending. And if that's not what's going on, like it doesn't matter. But those are my thoughts on The Road by Cormac McCarthy. For some reason, I thought this was on my scratch off map. It's On the Road that's on there, which I read and hated. This one should be on there instead. And now today I'm moving on to Dark Fever by Karen Marie Moning. This is a mystery fairy story. I read the first chapter and it feels very much set in a specific moment in time. We have this 22-year-old girl who doesn't really know what direction she's going in life, and she's taking some college classes, and she always tells herself that in the future she's going to figure it out. When her sister comes back to town, she's going to figure it out. Then suddenly her sister dies in Ireland and sent her this voicemail saying like something's happening. She met this guy. He's one of them. You need to know your true identity. And I guess there are fairies, and then there are something else. I forget what she called herself. Are they like seers? Sid seer? I'm not really sure. but maybe something that's like battling the fairies, and they were fighting over this object that they were trying to find. And as all of that was happening, we got introduced to the world that Michaela is living in, which is, you know, 2006, and she's taking classes on how to learn how to use the internet. And she's talking about going to the mall and getting a Nokia phone, and how she doesn't have a satellite phone, how her old phone wasn't a camera phone or didn't have the new text messaging capabilities. The only gadget I need is my trusty iPod. Music is my great escape. So I guess she's gonna go over to Dublin and figure out what actually happened to her sister now that she's gotten this weird message from her. Oh, here it says she has a gift that allows her to see beyond the world of man into the dangerous realm of the Fae. I originally wanted to read this because I am delving into like the land of the smut this year a little bit, and now I understand this book is not that. So hopefully I still find something enjoyable from here. Hopefully there's like romantic tension and it'll make me want to continue, but we'll see. I have been trying to read this all day. I'm only a third of the way in. This is painful. This is a real struggle. I was thinking about DNFing it, and then like I was gonna say, you couldn't pay me to finish this. You can. Your views partially pay my bills, so you're paying me to finish this. I just need the person, or like one of the people who originally recommended this to me years ago, to comment, so I know that you existed. So I know that someone, just like pretend, okay? Type like, I've been waiting for you to review this for 6 years. I've been anxiously anticipating this moment. I'm so glad you finished it. I was living and waiting for this because I have zero motivation. I really can't stand the writing. First of all, this is just an advertisement for Ireland. I don't know who paid Karen to write so highly of Ireland. Not that Ireland's not a great place, but like there were paragraphs and paragraphs of like how Ireland's the perfect place to go and how the temperature is this and the views are that and like everyone must go here. Things are just happening really easily. It's like the first person she meets happens to be a fairy. The first person she talks to happens to know the secrets of this. The next person she talks to knows that she is a super special secret person. When she swears, she says things like fudge buckets. She's literally on a mission to find a murderer and can't stop telling us about like how much she loves the color pink and how she wants to put a bow in her hair. And she referred to this guy as a sex god like 700 times in one paragraph. It's trying to give Buffy, it is feeling like Sabrina, and not the good Sabrina, like the little terrible books that I've read based off of the TV show. Where just like everything's just like so silly. She just met this guy named Jericho, and in the very first scene I just have this feeling that they're going to, this is the couple for the series. And it is giving me the energy of like, what if Buffy and Giles were a thing? I don't think that's even fair, and don't make me defend my position on it. That's just what their energies are feeling like Karen is trying to do here. I don't like it, and I have 200 more pages to read. I finished this. It took every last bit of my will to live, to get through it. Why did I do it? Not sure. Just because I said I would, I guess. And I am a woman of my word. I think I said I wanted to read it so I could have a review for it by the end. I don't really have a review. Like, this reminds me of being in 2006 and my friends reading like paranormal romance and trying to get me to read like Twilight and the Immortal, what are they called? Immortal Instruments and stuff like that, and me reading the first chapter and going, no, this is not for me. I want real life, real people. Like, I don't want to deal with like fairies and demons and stuff. Maybe that was 2007, but like I'm thinking like the end of high school. I was just really rejecting anything fantastical, and that definitely continued into my early adulthood. I wish I could appreciate this. Like I really wish I could. I didn't like anything about it. I didn't like the writing. I think it didn't commit to the bit of talking directly to the reader, but occasionally Michaela as a narrator would go like, oh, I'll tell you more about this later, or I don't want to bore you with these details now. And I wish it had like fully gone there and it was like completely aware of its reader and broke the fourth wall like as a stylistic choice consistently. Instead, it just felt kind of weird. I didn't like any of these characters. Like, I want to appreciate that Michaela was the type of character who liked girly pretty things and was self-absorbed, and it's like her journey in the series, but also she sticks to who she is, and she's not just like some badass girl. Like, she still likes frilly stuff, and it's just her narration of herself is what bothered me. I I just didn't like it. I didn't like the love interest. I didn't like the plot. I didn't like how easily she just was like wrapped up in this world, which is the point, and I understand it. But she just went from like being a sweet Georgia peach to like being so deep into this fairy world and using all of this language that there even is a glossary to appreciate if you're lost. But yeah, she just, I don't know, didn't reject any of it or have to grapple with any of it. She was just like in it. And no, now that I finished it, I wouldn't call it smutty, but it was very sexual. I guess part of the powers that she's coming into contact with are creatures like making you horny, like making, like wanting to control you, wanting to make you have sex with them or want to have sex with them. So she's constantly referencing like how she feels in those scenarios, and she's talking about like my bouncing bosom, my swelling breasts, the soaking wet underwear, and she's like constantly undressing herself in public because she's so desperate for sex. So it's definitely one you can't take too seriously, and I wish that I was someone who could just like have a good time with it, but I didn't like anything about this. Switching gears, let's talk about some movies from 2006. I don't know if I have time to watch anything because I'm trying to get this video up. I still have at least 3 long novels to read. I didn't realize how long this one was. I just got it from the library. The Blade itself will be my next read. But we have to take a moment to appreciate 2006 cinema. We had The Hills Have Eyes, The Devil Wears, oh my God, The Devil Wears Prada, Pan's Labyrinth, 2 things I've never seen that people tell me I should. I've never seen an X-Men movie, but The Last Stand apparently came out. I've never seen a Fast and Furious. Maybe the first one, actually, but Tokyo Drift came out that year. She's the Man, finally something that I've seen. Now you know, like, my taste, right? Similar with books, like fun, wild fantasy stuff coming out. Everyone was into that. I wanted to watch silly, like, teen drama and comedy. And oh, Little Miss Sunshine, that was my shit. Oh my God, still to this day one of my favorites. The Holiday, terrible movie, but like also really good somehow. We watched it in my channel membership. Oh, I need to figure out what we're gonna watch for our Christmas movie this year, or our holiday movie. The Covenant came out in 2006. If it was witchy but still based in reality, I was into it. Like The Craft wasn't 2006, but like The Craft and The Covenant are 2 things that I think of fondly. John Tucker Must Die, absolute classic. Aquamarine, I also haven't seen. So sorry to everyone. Failure to Launch, I have seen. If it's a rom-com, I saw it. Accepted, oh my God, that's one of my definite favorites. Just My Luck, Stick It, oh, okay, 2006 was good. Anyway, I'll let you know when I've started this, or I'll probably have to you tomorrow and tell you how far I've gotten into it. Oh yeah, I don't know the plot. Logan, 9 Fingers, infamous barbarian, has finally run out of luck, caught up in one feud too many. Oh, then we have another character, Jezel, paragon of selfishness, has nothing more dangerous in mind than winning glory. Inquisitor Glokta, 3rd character, crippled turned torturer, would like little more than seeing Jezel come home in a box. What are we talking about? Oh God, and it starts at the end. I just turned on the heat in my house for the first time in like 7 months, and I don't like it. I don't like how cold it is. I love September and I love October, and the weather is just so for me, and it's so perfect. And then so there's just like one day in October every year that I'm like, oh, it goes from like chilly cute long sleeve to like, oh my God, I need to be wearing 3 sweaters. Hands are freezing cold. Hate it here. Hate it so much. All the leaves have fallen off my favorite trees, and I'm just like, I have had no energy the last couple days. And I saw a TikTok that was like, well, I think the focus was like, don't let corporate America make you think you're supposed to be productive all the time. But like the general idea is we are meant to slow down. We like, winter is meant for hibernation and for relaxing, and to be like cozying up in blankets and like taking things slow and like making stew. The natural weather cycle for me and where I live means there are months where I'm supposed to just take it slow. With that said, that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. I can't get into this. I've read 100 pages and I have no idea what's going on. And I actually think I need to start over. Like, wasn't paying attention, not really sure, can't keep track of everything. I looked at all the reviews and they're like, oh my God, the characters are so funny. It's so fun and so quirky. I was like, what? I need to try again. So sorry, new title card. 68 pages into the 13th Tale by Diane Setterfield. You might be more familiar with this cover. I'm hooked. I'm hooked, and I'm so worried because I'm very intrigued. I am motivated to read this, but we're about to switch into a story within the story. And this could make or break the book for me because I need to be as interested in the tale as what I've been interested in so far. So we have this main character, Margaret. She seems like a really random person to be taking this job. There has to be more behind it. There's some things that we're going to come to understand, I'm sure. We have a woman named Vida Winter. We just found out her real name, but she goes by Vida Winter, and she's this really famous author. And the main character, Margaret, works at like a bookshop with her family, and she has never read a book by this author. And then one day she gets an invitation to write the biography of this author. And Vida is like, come over, I'm gonna tell you everything. But other people have been trying to tell her story, and she like doesn't always tell the truth, and she just like wants to spin a fun tale. And so apparently with her finally meeting with Margaret in these one-on-one sessions, she's going to tell like the full truth of her life. The writing is beautiful, descriptions, just the language. It's a book that's a fan of books and literature, so I'm absolutely loving it. And now meeting with Vida, she's gonna tell a story, and I don't know how often this is gonna come into it. I don't know if we're suddenly gonna get 50-50, the story inside the story and the real life story. And I also don't know how, it does seem like it's gonna be a lot of pages. I don't know how it matters and how everything's connected. Like, I don't get the point right now. I didn't even read this entire thing before starting, but now I understand. This is the story being told to us by the author about her life. And there's something to do with twins, and we also believe that Margaret is a twin and just never knew that. That's something she discovered in the very opening, and so I guess those things are going to be connected somehow. It says it's a multi-layered mystery with twists and turns and weaves a quite magical spell. I always thought this was fantasy, and I guess it still could be. And the 13th tale is in reference to the author writing a book of 12 tales, and it got published as being called the 13th tale. So maybe the one she's telling us is her 13th tale, and she just like never revealed it to anybody until now. I'm really into this, and it's like I'm scared to continue because I don't want to lose interest in the story inside. I don't think I will. I have a lot to do today. I have to make decisions about our besties book club coming up for the season. I will tell you what we've decided in case you want to join by the end of the video. I have to go pick up Liam, and then he has hockey tonight. There's the player meeting before practice, and I know that they're deciding captains and assistant captains and stuff. Then I have a little bit of work to do. You don't need to know about any of that. I guess I'll see you in a little bit. I am approaching the end. I picked up the audiobook for probably like a quarter of this, and then realized afterwards that it was the abridged version. I was wondering why it was so short. So I think I missed some things, but I don't feel like it's any plot points. It's just description, which is okay. This is just full of such beautiful language. I think this is one of those books that people probably say, like people who don't like it say that it's overly descriptive and that it takes too long to do things. There was 2 different quotes about rain that I just think were so beautiful. What consolation is there in truth compared to a story? What good is truth at midnight in the dark when the wind is roaring like a bear in the chimney, when the lightning strikes shadows on the bedroom wall and the rain taps at the window with its long fingernails? No, when fear and cold make a statue of you in your bed, don't expect hard-boned and fleshless truth to come running to your aid. What you need are the plump comforts of a story, the soothing, rocking safety of a lie. This is just a book that's such a fan of books. I adore it. It's the same story as it was in the beginning. Like, we're following the same thing. She continues to interview this woman. We continue to get the real story of a childhood and things that occurred. There was just a reveal at this far in, and I'm just gonna, I think, eat up these final 100 pages before I go to bed, and then I'll update you in the morning once I've gathered all of my thoughts. I finished my book. Hooray! I had a dentist appointment this morning. I did some shopping. I just dropped Liam and all his friends off at the gym. What else? Oh, Liam made captain on his hockey team yesterday. So I should have shared that last night. It was pretty exciting news. And now let's discuss. The 13th tale was excellent. It's interesting that this book doesn't tell you the year, or because it's two timelines, the years that it's set. So like, it feels like historical fiction, and it's obviously set in a certain time period, but it's not super clear when. It uses really modern language, but the setting feels very like 1900s to 1920s, I would guess. And I think that's an interesting choice. There's not a lot of historical fiction that I read that doesn't place itself in a certain time. I can't help but think about like Evelyn Hugo when wanting to compare this to something. That book I know is so beloved and I didn't like it. And I think my issue with it is a lot to do with the choice of like interviewer and that portion of the story and how important or not important it is. And I just feel like this does that very well. I think others might disagree and think that the person doing the interviewing should have more of the story. But I just think that it felt so intentional how that character was handled. Her presence is just so strong to me, and the character voice is very clear, and she just had her own enchanting style. And then the story within the story, which becomes like the bulk of the novel, I came to understand, is thankfully like the strongest part. It's a simple sort of story, and it focuses on these twins, their differences, their desperate need to be together, and all the family revolving around them. And then some other people who come into the story. There's like a doctor. They have what's she called? A governess, Hester, and getting to see how she treats the twins and speaks about the twins and everything that goes on there was fascinating. There were twists and turns, but they were like quietly gothic. It wasn't like, oh my God, the most shocking thing ever. It was these slow, drawn out reveals. And then also they happen really quickly though, but it took a while to get there. I had a good payoff. It reminded me of reading two of the books that I loved in this series and got me to 5 stars, Fingersmith and Shadow of the Wind. It was like an interesting kind of combination of those two things. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this down and go home and read the first chapter of a couple other things to make sure I do or do not want to read them by the end of the video before I start in on the Lies of Locke Lamora, which is what I think I'm going to do next. I might have given up on the Blade itself, depending on how books continue to go. I might return to it. We'll just see how it goes. First of all, we need to talk about this coming in the mail today. It's an arc of Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. I can't believe I have it. I won't actually be reading it early, but I need to have it on hand for other reasons. Okay, here's what happened. As expected, Little Bards for Little Criminals is not for me. I don't think the content is for me. The writing didn't do it for me. Maybe it's something that I could see myself reading 7 years from now, so I'll probably keep it in my TBR closet. Special Topics and Calamity Physics, on the other hand, all of my friends hate. Everybody loves this. Everybody hates this. And I like it. I really like the writing. It's very quirky. I think it's going to be like a funny coming of age that is just very overwritten, and it's like hyper intellectualism. It's just like overly wordy and thesaurus speak, and like that's the point of it, is that this girl is growing up in a certain environment, and I don't even know what the plot is, but I did like the style of it. However, the one I've committed to, because I told you I was, is The Lies of Locke Lamora, just because I'm so curious and I just want to know. And I think I've already abandoned the other fantasy that I was reading, so I'm so sorry that I introed the video saying I'm gonna finish these. I lied to you. Oh, and this is signed. Like, how crazy that I didn't know that when I bought it. I made it exactly 100 pages in, And it started out and confused me a little bit because we were following like this orphanage and these children, and we met Locke, who was this child who's being like kicked out of where he was because he was just like the worst child ever and he was doing all of these terrible things and he broke the rules. And I was like, oh, this is about like children thieves? But no, it's just his origin story, which we do come back to and reflect on regularly. But the later storyline is him as an adult. And he's just like a part of this group of thieves, and they're planning their next like thieving at the beginning, like their next con. I definitely like it enough to continue. It's also very wordy, very descriptive. I imagine it's the kind of fantasy book that sets up so much and does so much world building and description so that later books can be really action focused. Granted, I am only in the first like sixth. I've only read the first 6 of this, so I don't know. But we're getting a lot of like just explanation about how everything functions. Am I retaining it all? I'm not sure. I have a bit of a headache, but I'm gonna read a little bit more before I go to bed and then read more tomorrow. And then will I make time to read this in this vlog? I don't know. I want to, but it's also so long. Ugh, what's a girl to do? It's 24 hours later. I have made really great progress, maybe 150 pages from the end, but I just don't know like maybe I don't know how to review fantasy. I don't know what to tell you about it. I don't know what to tell you that I'm like. I feel like I'm just along for the ride. Sometimes I read fantasy like this and I compare it to like watching a movie, a fantastical movie where I'm just like there. Like I don't really know, like, do I have favorite characters? Do I have favorite scenes? It's just all happening and I'm just there for it. There was one character I really liked named Harza who was running this pawn shop, and there was a really funny back and forth when Locke was trying to, or like the gentleman bastards in general, I can't really remember who was in the scene, was trying to sell things to him, and just the banter was really fun, and I thought that was going to be like a major plot point, and then it wasn't, like with that pawn shop owner. There's this girl who Locke is supposed to become involved with, like kind of like a marriage of convenience that will make him seem more appealing to people. What else? There's this woman he's actually obsessed with and in love with, and she is like not in the book, but I wonder if she's going to be in future books because everyone's talking about her a lot. And then there's been 2 deaths that were really intense. I really like the narration style. It's a little fun sometimes. It'll say things like, "Let's start wobbling now," said Locke's knees. At this point, some tragedies have occurred and they're starting a new job, a new thing that the group needs to accomplish. And yeah, we're still getting interludes of his childhood. I'm liking it, and I'll let you know my final thoughts in the morning. I finished The Lies of Locke Lamora, and I thought it was very good. I had a good time reading this. I don't know that I'll continue in the series, but I definitely just have a better understanding of the fantasy community and like what people love and why this might be a bunch of people's favorite. The world building is just so interesting, and the whole reason that they are the gentleman bastards and they thieve, there's like a whole lore behind it. And then we got magic, which I wasn't sure, like obviously with fantasy there doesn't always have to be magic, but there is this reference to magic throughout, and then we did get some magical things which I liked. The characters were funny. I don't have a lot to say about it, which is a little disappointing as far as maybe a viewer, and if you wanted me to really thoroughly discuss this. I just had a good time. And now we have come to the end of the video. I'm going to leave special topics for calamity physics for another time because I really do need more books on my shelf that I gave like a 10 out of 10 for their first chapter and I'm excited to read, because right now my TBR shelf like doesn't inspire me a ton, so I'm excited to have that on the back burner. And I do have a 5-star from this video, so it doesn't need to continue. Side note, one thing to mention, I talked about the book club pick. The besties have selected Yours for the Taking. So if you're interested in reading that with us, there's a live show in December. And if I am good at my job, you should be able to infer the ratings that I gave all of the books. There was a reason why I was keeping them to myself. So to run it back, let's see if you knew what I was rating these books without me saying it. Mistborn, What did you think? What vibes did you get? Did I properly indicate that this was a 4.25, 4.5? I really enjoyed my time with that. I thought it was super interesting. What did I read next? The Road was a 4. I don't know if that one came across properly, but I do really respect what this was. It's not a favorite of mine, but I understand people who love it. Dark Fever, what do you think? I think it sounded like it was a 1, but I reserve 1s for really horrific books, and I don't think this was that. There's something to enjoy in here, not for me, but like I see it a little bit. So I'm gonna give it a 2. Is it a 1.75? The next book I read was The 13th Tale, which is a 5. Did I get that across well? This is a 5. I thought it was fantastic. Definitely something that I could see myself rereading, which I don't say a lot. And finally, The Lies of Locke Lamora, I'm gonna go ahead and give a 4. This felt like a 4, had a good time, and that's everything. So I have officially filled out this entire board. It's been a year and a half in the making, a year since I made the original video, and then 10 months I have been creating content to find these 5 stars. I'm really happy that it happened. I officially have a 5-star favorite read from every single year of my 30, how old am I? 35 years? No, 34. I'm 34. Am I 34? Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this premiere, even though it was long, if you watched along that way, and I'll see you for another video soon.